Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Thursday, January 18th, 2024. Welcome to day 1094. The House and Senate passed a stopgap spending bill to prevent a partial government shutdown this weekend, sending the measure to Biden as Congress continues to struggle with approval of all 12 appropriations bills that fund the government. The short-term spending package, the third since September, will extend current funding for the FDA, as well as the Departments of Energy, Agriculture, and Veterans Affairs through March 1st, with funding for the rest of the government, including the Pentagon, continuing through March 8th. Lawmakers, however, are in session together for 6 days before the March 1st deadline, and for 10 days before the March 8th deadline. The Senate passed the legislation 77-18, followed by the House hours later with a vote of 314 to 108. The votes came after 13 hardline Republicans who have repeatedly held the chamber hostage in retaliation for the spending deal Speaker Mike Johnson reached with Democrats launched a last-minute campaign to attach partisan border security measures to the funding package. Moving on, a Justice Department investigation into the 2022 school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, found cascading failures and no urgency by law enforcement before, during, and after the attack that killed 19 children and 2 teachers. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced the 600-page report, saying, had law enforcement agencies followed generally accepted practices in an active shooter situation and gone right after the shooter to stop him, lives would have been saved and people would have survived. Garland added that the law enforcement response was a failure that should not have happened. For 77 minutes, nearly 400 law enforcement officers failed to intervene as an 18-year-old gunman with a semi-automatic rifle remained inside a pair of connected 4th-grade classrooms. The report says that during that period, no one assumed a leadership role to direct the response toward the active shooter, provide situational status to responding officers, establish some form of incident command, or clearly assume and communicate the role of incident commander. All told, fewer than 10 law enforcement officers who were on the scene that day are known to have either been fired or have resigned. Meanwhile, Texas refused to comply with a cease-and-desist letter from the Biden administration demanding that the Texas National Guard stop blocking U.S. Border Patrol agents from accessing a public park. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton rejected the Biden administration's demand that the state abandon the public park along the U.S.-Mexico border. Paxton said, because the facts and law side with Texas, the state will continue utilizing its constitutional authority to defend her territory, and I will continue defending those lawful efforts in court. Homeland Security officials said a woman and 2 children drowned in the Rio Grande after Border Patrol agents were physically barred by Texas officials from entering the area, under orders from Republican Governor Greg Abbott. The Biden administration has threatened to refer the matter to the Department of Justice for appropriate action if Texas continues to deny Border Patrol agents full access to the area. And finally, Florida House Republicans introduced legislation that would ban flags that depict a racial, sexual orientation and gender, or political ideology viewpoint in government buildings and schools. Republicans claim the ban on flags is to protect children from being subliminally indoctrinated with critical race theory, Marxism, and transgender ideology in classrooms. Critics say the legislation is an attempt by Republicans to bully the LGBTQ and minority communities in the state. Over the past 2 years, Florida has banned classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in the state public schools, ordered its schools to ignore federal guidelines aimed at protecting LGBTQ students and teachers from discrimination, expanded its ban on classroom instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity, banned an AP African American Studies course, and released new standards for teaching Black history that require students to learn that enslaved people developed skills that could be applied for their personal benefit. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditis.